Welcome back to my channel Celebuzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. I have so many memories of Conway. Conway is one of the best singers I ever heard. Loretta Lynn was never quiet about what she thought. From a coal miner's daughter to country music royalty, she told the truth on stage, off stage, and especially when someone made her mad. She sang about cheating husbands, jealous women, and hard truths long before Nashville was brave enough to follow her lead. She didn't care about being ladylike. She cared about being honest. Loretta's songs weren't just catchy. They were confessions, raw, unfiltered, and often controversial. She talked about birth control, domestic violence, and class shame when others stayed quiet. And that fearlessness made her enemies just as fast as it made her fans. But behind that fierce voice and fiery spirit lived a memory like a steel trap. Loretta forgave a lot, but forgot never. And as she turned 90, surrounded by a legacy unmatched, she finally let slip the names she'd kept bottled up for decades. The artists who crossed her, challenged her, or simply never earned her respect. This is the list no one thought she'd share. And it starts with the woman who once threatened her crown, Tammy Wynette, the rival queen. They were country's golden girls, two voices that defined a generation. But beneath the gowns, wigs, and televised smiles was a rivalry colder than a Tennessee winter. Tammy Wynette, with her sweet ballads and tragic beauty, was every record label's favorite. But Loretta saw through it. She believed Tammy's fame was built on image, not grit. To Loretta, Tammy played into the industry's idea of what a female star should be: vulnerable, polished, always soft-spoken. Loretta, by contrast, had clawed her way up from butcher holler with nothing but a beat-up guitar and a whole lot of backbone. She didn't just sing about pain, she lived it. That difference drove a wedge between them that never quite healed. Loretta once scoffed. "I never needed a man to stand by me. I told him to move." It was a jab, no doubt, and many thought it was aimed right at Tammy's biggest hit, "Stand By Your Man." The timing of that quote was no accident. Behind the scenes, producers pushed hard to pair them together for a duet album. Imagine the publicity, the sales, the headlines, but Loretta shut it down every time. It'd be like oil and water. She reportedly told her manager, "We might sell records, but we'd never survive rehearsals." What fans didn't know was that their feud simmered under the surface for years, marked by tense award show run-ins, frosty radio, interviews, and mean compliments thrown like grenades during press junkets. The industry tried to put them together in duets. It never happened. And the real reason? Loretta once confided to a close friend, "She's sweet as pie on camera but cold as ice backstage." Then came a shared dressing room moment in 1974 that turned tension into outright animosity. Conway Twitty, the man who took too much credit. Fans loved them together. Songs like Louisiana Woman, Mississippi Man made them country's dream duo. Sassy, flirtatious, and dripping with chemistry. But off camera, the dream was a minefield filled with bruised egos and growing resentments. Conway Twitty was smooth, polished, and deeply ambitious. And Loretta noticed something. Every time they won an award, the media called it his win. He was labeled the genius, the hitmaker. While she was praised for being his perfect match, Loretta, who'd written her own hits, weathered storms, and reshaped country music with her raw honesty, couldn't help but feel overlooked. "They always put the man first," she once snapped. "Even when he's following you," their connection was undeniable. Undeniable. Rumors of an emotional affair began circulating in Nashville. They laughed it off, but Loretta's husband Doolittle didn't. He reportedly refused to attend concerts where Conway was present. And though nothing was ever confirmed, fans picked up on the lingering eye contact, the hand-holding that lasted a little too long. But admiration quickly turned to tension. As their popularity soared, Conway began nudging their sound into shinier, more commercial territory, softening the edge Loretta had built her legacy on. She fought back. "He wanted the songs pretty," she once said. "But I wanted them real." That battle of vision strained their creative partnership. Behind the curtain, things got worse. Conway allegedly started arriving late to rehearsals, tweaking set lists without telling Loretta, and accepting interview requests solo, even when the spotlight was meant to be shared. Their breaking point came on tour in '79. Backstage before a show in Atlanta, Conway made a careless comment to a young reporter. She still got it for Harridge. The words weren't cruel, but they landed like a slap. Loretta heard it, said nothing. Then, when her cue came that night, she stayed behind the curtain. The band kept playing, the crowd kept cheering, and Conway stood on stage alone, waiting. Olivia Newton-John, the pop princess who invaded country. In the mid-70s, Loretta Lynn watched in disbelief as a fresh-faced pop singer from Australia took home the CMA Award for Female Vocalist of the Year. To most, it was a sign of country music expanding its borders, but to Loretta, it was a slap in the face. Olivia Newton-John was beautiful, soft-spoken and polished to perfection. Her voice was smooth, her image perfect, and her sound, as far as Loretta was concerned, was anything but country. Nashville, however, rolled out the red carpet. Radio stations played Olivia non-stop. Award shows heaped praise. Magazine covers declared her the future of country. Loretta bristled at every word. To Loretta, country music was born in the dirt, clawed into existence by women who sang with pain in their throats and grit in their bones. Olivia, in Loretta's eyes, had skipped the dues-paying part. "I worked in coal dust," she once muttered under her breath. She worked in lighting gels. The bitterness wasn't just about the music, it was about what Olivia represented, the industry's shift toward commercial polish, a move away from truth and twang. Loretta saw her beloved genre becoming a product marketed, packaged, and sold to people who didn't understand where it came from. Loretta famously refused to attend one particular CMA event after learning Olivia would be honored again. When asked why, she said she had a scheduling conflict, but behind closed doors, she reportedly told her manager, "I ain't clapping for no pop, star playing cowboy." And when Olivia gave a bubbly interview claiming she wanted to help bring country into the mainstream, Loretta didn't hold back. "We don't need help," she said privately. "We need respect." It wasn't about jealousy, it was about authenticity. Loretta had spent years fighting to be heard in an industry that wanted her quiet. Now they were handing crowns to newcomers who hadn't lived the struggle. But even that betrayal didn't cut as deep as the next one, because the artist who hurt her most wasn't a stranger. She was family, flesh, and blood. And she would leave Loretta more wounded than any award snub ever could. Crystal Gayle, the sister she couldn't trust. Long hair, pop leanings, crossover success. Crystal Gayle was everything Loretta wasn't, and that became a problem neither of them could outrun. Despite being sisters, their relationship was never picture perfect. Loretta had clawed her way through a Molly-dominated industry, faced down critics, and sung her truth without compromise. Crystal, on the other hand, seemed to glide effortlessly into stardom, her voice silky, her image refined, her appeal crossover ready. While Loretta wore fringe and boots, Crystal was all gowns and gloss. When Crystal scored her massive hit with Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue, the industry buzzed. She was dubbed the new face of female country. Loretta, watching from the sidelines, didn't hide her feelings. She always had it easy, she confided to a friend. She didn't have to crawl through the mud. First, there had always been tension between the two. Subtle digs, quiet comparisons, moments of icy distance at family events. But things escalated when Crystal declined to attend Astor-studded tribute for Loretta's 60th birthday. Her team blamed schedule conflicts, but Loretta didn't buy it. She felt the absence like a knife to the heart, especially as every other country legend showed up to honor her. Still, Loretta held her tongue. That was her way. Pride first, pain second. But the moment that sealed the silence came during a televised joint interview a few years later. The interviewer asked Crystal what Loretta meant to her career. She paused, smiled politely, and replied, "She was influential." One word, one dry, distant word. No stories, no emotion, no gratitude. Loretta kept her expression calm, but after that she never agreed to another shared appearance again. She never brought it up, but she never forgot either, and that kind of quiet rage, the kind that builds slow and settles deep, would come roaring back when an outlaw legend she once trusted took things one step too far. Merle Haggard, the drinking buddy, who went too far. At first, they were allies. Loretta and Merle shared the same grit. Poor upbringings, rough voices, and rougher edges. Both had been hardened by life and softened only by their music. They respected each other, shared festival stages, and even toasted to surviving the hellish grind of the industry. In many ways, Merle was one of the few male artists Loretta felt truly understood her. But Merle had a way of ruffling feathers, especially those he admired. He was unpredictable, brash, and unapologetically stubborn. Loretta once joked at a party, if he wasn't drunk, he was high. If he wasn't high, he was writing a song about being drunk. Everyone laughed, including Merle. But when the cameras were rolling during a live radio interview in the early 80s, Merle turned the tables. Hez smirked and said, "Loretta's been playing the poor girl act too long. We get it. Cold dust and babies, what else you got?" It cut deep. The crowd laughed nervously, but Loretta didn't smile. Behind closed doors, the tension worsened. Loretta had reached out with an idea for a duet, something raw and redemptive about addiction and faith. It wasn't just another radio hit to her. It was personal. Merle shrugged it off, calling it church lady stuff. It wasn't just a creative difference. It was ass slap in the face. To Loretta, songs were about survival, not spectacle. She wrote from scars. Merle by then had become more of a performer than a confessor in Hearies. She later vented to her band, "He wants pain in his songs, but laughs at mine." That contradiction gnawed at her. It wasn't just that he said no, it was that he didn't even care to understand. He brushed off her story like it was fiction, like her truth didn't matter, and that laugh, his mocking casual chuckle, echoed in her ears for years, until a new kind of threat entered the scene. Younger, shinier, and to Loretta, far more dangerous. Reba McEntire, the new star who didn't pay her dues. In the 1980s, country music changed. It got shinier, flashier, louder. Gone were the days of raw recordings and backwoods ballads. Now it was arena tours, choreographed performances, and polished perfection. And no star rode that wave harder or faster than Reba McEntire. Reba had the voice, the charisma, the marketing team, and Nashville couldn't get enough of her. But to Loretta, Reba wasn't just the new kid on the block. She was the beginning of the end. "She came in like a storm," Loretta told a friend, "but you got to walk through the rain first." Loretta had paid her dues. Every dusty stage, every shady promoter, every night spent away from her kids. Reba, by comparison, felt like a product carefully curated, studio managed, a face for the new era of country. But their old grudge began when a glossy music magazine dubbed Reba the new queen of country. The headline ran in bold red letters just months after Loretta had announced a new album. She hadn't even retired, and already she was being replaced. Then came the moment that sealed it. At a televised awards show, Reba took the stage and belted out one of Loretta's classics, note for note, smile for smile. But there was no introduction, no mention, no nod to the woman who made that song famous. Loretta sat in the front row, arms crossed, unmoved. People backstage said her expression didn't change once, but the final betrayal happened out of the spotlight. Backstage, after the performance, Reba reportedly brushed right past Loretta. No eye contact, no handshake, not even a thank you. That was it. From that moment on, Loretta refused to comment on Reba publicly. Not praise, not criticism, just silence. And for someone as outspoken as Loretta, that silence spoke volumes. But even with all the hurt and bitterness from rivals and rising stars, one wound stayed open longer than the rest, because the person who hurt her most wasn't a competitor. He was a friend, a mentor, a ghost that never quite left. Johnny Cash, the ghost that haunted her. He was the outlaw she admired, the rebel who understood her pain. Johnny Cash wasn't just another country star to Loretta Lynn. He was a kindred spirit. They came from nothing. Both wore scars like armor, and both refused to be tamed by Nashville's polished rules. They'd shared countless stages, swapped stories in dressing rooms, and offered each other quiet encouragement during the hardest of years. But even the deepest respect can unravel in a single moment. It was the late 1970s. Loretta had been invited to appear on a televised gospel special hosted by Johnny. She was excited, genuinely honored. Gospel music was her foundation, and to share that platform with Cash felt like a full-circle moment. She flew in early, rehearsed quietly, and stayed humble. Then, just 2 days before the taping, she got the call. She'd been cut. No reason given, just a change in format. Confused, embarrassed, and heartbroken, Loretta checked out of the studio hotel and watched the broadcast alone in her room. The slot that had once been hers went to a younger, less controversial artist. It wasn't until weeks later that she heard the truth. Whispers from a producer on set confirmed it. The decision had come from Johnny himself. He'd allegedly told the network she was too outspoken for a gospel program. Too political, too fiery, too Loretta. It felt like betrayal wrapped in silence. She never confronted him, never called, never wrote. But her pain was sharp and personal. "He knew who I was," she told a close confidant. "He knew I didn't fake it, and still he shut me out." Years later, Johnny sent her a handwritten letter. The apology was heartfelt, remorseful, but Loretta never responded. She folded the letter and tucked it into a cedar box in her Tennessee home. It stayed there 4 decades. In 2015, during a rare interview, she was asked about Johnny Cash. She looked down for a long time before answering, "Some ghosts don't rest easy." And one night before her final tour began, Loretta leaned in close to a longtime friend and whispered something strange. A cryptic message Johnny once left her. A line that had haunted her ever since. One she never repeated out loud, not even in the end. The fire that never went out. Loretta Lynn never backed down. Not from poverty, not from pain, and certainly not from a fight. She may have loved many in her lifetime, but the ones who hurt her stayed etched in her memory like verses in a bitter ballad. Now, with the world looking back on her legacy, the truth emerges, not just about her triumphs, but about the betrayals that shaped them. Which of these rivalries shocked you the most? Do you think Loretta was right to hold on to those grudges? Or should some things be left unsung? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories of country legends.